Relocation through a wife's eyes, a flight from war, a return to memory. I never imagined I'd have so many uprooted stories to tell. About fleeing war-torn cities, rescuing my beloved dogs from impossible places, or watching how national grief turns into nationalism. And yet here I am, setting down the events that carried my husband away from home, then drove me to follow. These pages capture our journey from a grandmother's wartime letters hidden in an attic trunk to modern train rides across Kazakhstan. Some chapters will reflect on the extraordinary lengths I took to keep our dogs safe in transit, while others will face a reality where everyday people are coaxed into nationalist views. At the heart, though, is one truth I keep coming back to. We all long for a place to belong, even when that place can no longer hold us. Part 4, Leela, a story of struggle and salvation. Our nonprofit is dedicated to helping gifted individuals secure talent visas and build new lives grounded in strong moral values. We believe true talent goes hand in hand with integrity and compassion. Today we share a story that might seem unexpected for our resource, but perfectly illustrates these principles. It is not just a story of relocation, seen through a wife's eyes. It is also the journey of her devoted four-legged companion. At the core of our mission is supporting people who excel in their fields and uphold the highest ethical standards and respect for all life. For someone like this, the idea of leaving a beloved pet behind is unthinkable. A dog becomes a family member and embodies humanity and compassion. The inseparable bond between a person and their loyal friend, even under unimaginable hardship, proves the very values we cherish. This stance, rooted in deep respect for life and a refusal to tolerate injustice, makes it impossible to remain in a country that has waged war on a brotherly nation. This relocation is more than moving. It is an act of conviction and a stand for freedom and justice. The story you're about to hear reveals every challenge faced by this family and their dog, from daunting logistics and red tape to profound emotional trials, resilience, and unwavering loyalty. Their experience shows that true talent often comes with remarkable courage and an unshakable commitment to moral ideals. These are the people we strive to support because their journey is not just about finding opportunity. It is about affirming values that belong to all of us. And now, let us hear their story through the eyes of Leela.
Born on a frozen Karelia airfield, my journey began amid harsh forests and endless lakes. I came into the world in February 2020, somewhere on a snowy airfield in Karelia, a land of harsh forests and endless lakes with a long, complex history. Of course, I knew none of this. My first memories aren't of the smell of fur or fresh snow, but of a cold bag where I was tossed with my tiny siblings. We were taken to a shelter, and soon my first real nightmare began: parvovirus. My body refused to obey me. I was lethargic, constantly vomiting, and something terrible, sometimes bloody, was coming out of me. I couldn't eat or drink, and every inch of my belly ached. My eyes were sunken, and I felt life slowly draining from me. My temperature spiked up and down, and I just lay there, waiting for the end. I was sure these were my final moments. It was then, just as I was about to give up, that a miracle happened. I learned that someone from far off Saint Petersburg had chosen me. My photos somehow reached them, and as I was told later, I looked so much like their dog, Saga, that their hearts couldn't bear it. And then, only then, did the treatment begin. IV drips, injections. My weak body began to fight again. Hope arrived with an 8-hour journey to a city once linked to Finland's wild north. As soon as I was a little better, I was crammed into a cage with a dozen other puppies. We rattled along for 8 hours on the road to Saint Petersburg, about 280 miles, 450 km. My paws trembled, but I felt a sense of anticipation. St. Petersburg itself, especially its outskirts, also once had ties to Finland, a land of harsh northern territories, and so I, a tiny dog from Karelia, was heading there to be saved. Upon arrival, I saw her. My human ran to me with tears in her eyes, fell to her knees, and then offered me something incredible, a treat I'd never tasted before. This was the beginning. But getting home proved harder than I thought. Many taxi drivers refused to take us, and I felt my humans grow tense. Later, I understood that these drivers, many of whom were from Central Asia, view dogs differently than in the Western world, and this created huge difficulties. I didn't know then that many years later, my paws would step on the soil of one of those countries, and I would help my humans rescue local dogs from a cruel and unjust fate. Joy and mischief marked my new life with Mom, Dad, and Saga. For now, my own home awaited me. Mom, Dad, and another dog named Saga. Saga had been rescued 5 years earlier, a skeletal figure in the cold winter. I was named Leela after a character from the animated series Futurama. At first, I couldn't get enough to eat. I was so happy to be in my new home. And the first thing I did was give my human parents a big doggy gift. I peed on all their beds and couches so they'd understand. This was a safe space. Fortunately, COVID was declared on the planet, and my parents worked from home, always by my side. I grew very fond of my plastic bed. At first, I fit entirely inside it, like in a bassinet. Then it became too small. Then I only fit half in. We initially lived on Vasilyevsky Island, the largest island in the Neva River Delta. It was an amazing place, surrounded by water on all sides. The big Neva smelled of fish and something old, the small Neva of fresh wind. My paws slid on the smooth cobblestones, and the air carried the scent of coffee from cozy cafes and thousands of other completely new smells for me. Mum said that a long time ago, the Tsar wanted to create the center of a new capital here, and I felt that it was a special place, full of secrets and adventures for my nose. A sudden move brought us to Kolomyagi's quiet green embrace. After some time, my parents decided to move. It was New Year's Eve, the truck was 6 hours late, and we rode directly in the back of the van across the entire city, hearing fireworks booming. It was very scary. We were going to our new apartment with luxurious renovations in the Primorsky district of Saint Petersburg, in a place called Kolomyagi. This is also a very interesting place, and its name is Finnish. Kolomyagi in Finnish means 3 hills. No wonder, as Finnish tribes once lived here. Now it's a quiet green area, completely unlike Vasilyevsky Island, more reminiscent of the countryside with private homes and dachas, although with modern buildings. There was a special atmosphere here, recalling ancient times and the proximity of cultures. I also contributed to the renovation of our cool apartment. I decorated pillows and blankets with holes, once even chewed on the handles of the new sofa. I'm an aesthete after all. I was thrilled because there were lakes, a quarry, and the Orlovsky Reserve right next to our house. I played with other dogs, swam year-round, and the ice on the lake didn't bother me because I'm a northern dog. I have very thick and reliable fur, and I love the cold. Saga has an entire collection of winter down jackets, but I don't need that nonsense. I love rolling in the snow and swimming in icy water, and I also love rolling in poop or dead cats. I was always wary of strangers and reacted strongly by barking at drunk people or those I didn't understand. I didn't know then that people are very different, and I would meet wonderful people, even those who once seemed alien. COVID brought new trials and fierce loyalty. My parents got seriously ill with COVID. They had high fevers and almost no strength. But Mum didn't stop working. She was the head of the legal department, after all. She often vomited, but then she'd sit back down at the computer and overcome the pain, despite lung damage. I wanted to help, so I'd take my parents outside, but they couldn't walk and just sat somewhere by the bushes while I protected them from bad people and rolled on my back in the muddy slush. Because Saint Petersburg has a very humid climate, and fortunately for me, bad roads. I collected all the dirt and howled with delight while doing it. As a dog, I especially loved this city. I adored the sound of grey slush under my paws, and in winter, the feeling of a cold mix of slush and snow. It was pure bliss. Sometimes, when there was very little sun, even I, a northern dog, felt a little sad, but the mud always saved me. Mobilization ripped our family apart. On September 23rd, 2022, mobilization began across the country. My parents were horrified and hastily packed a suitcase, which, it turned out, was for Dad. This meant men were being drafted into the army. No, they weren't afraid to die. They were afraid they'd be forced to kill people just like themselves. Dad left. My mum, for some reason, didn't eat for 4 days while Dad was travelling somewhere. So there were 3 of us left, Mum, Saga, and me. Mum got up at 6 a.m. to walk us, then left for work all day, coming home around 8 p.m. tired, and walked us again. Usually she had about 5 minutes for dinner before some courses or lessons, and as before, people continued to come and ask for Mum's help because she's a good lawyer. Mum saw how other people around her seemed indifferent, or even supported what was happening, which tormented her so much. They didn't understand why Dad had left and kept asking when he would return. Every month or 2, Mum would fly to Dad, and we lived with a dog trainer. I was happy at the dog trainers because there were so many dogs there, and finally there was a pleasant smell. Mum will never know how Saga felt at the dog trainers, but it seemed like something wasn't good. I noticed that other people on the street became aggressive, and some kind of negativity hung in the air. Every walk, someone would yell at Mum. Once, at 6 a.m., someone shot a pistol at me, but luckily they missed. My mum was fading and often sick, continuing to go to the office. She almost stopped sleeping, and our walks became shorter. I helped her wake up in the morning by running my claws across her face, leaving red marks. In November 2024, Mum quit her job. I know how important her work was to her, and she had a really good career. 2 frightening crates led us toward freedom. At some point, 2 large cages appeared at home. Mum tried to show that they were safe and put treats inside. With trembling paws, I'd go in, grab the treat, and quickly run out. I absolutely hated those bars. After that, Mum packed almost the entire apartment into boxes and took them somewhere. The house became empty. Then it was very inconvenient to walk because Mum hurt her back and could barely walk, but we helped her with all our might and pulled in all directions, especially if we saw a cat or something interesting, and I'm sure that this really supported her. Then, through the snowy city, we were taken to the vet, given vaccinations, and we spent a long time filling out some international exit certificate. Mum gave us some pills, and they made us indifferent, like we didn't care about anything. Soon, a huge car came for us, and we were heading to the airport. There was some kind of summit, so we stood in traffic for another 2 hours on the ring road. After the traffic jam, Mum looked for the right terminal and finally led us into the airport building. We walked a long time through corridors and came to the part where vet control took place. They put some stamps on our certificates, and we ran out of the airport again into that terrible car. A frightening flight carried us into the unknown. The next day, Mum gave us medicine again. Then she wheeled out 3 suitcases, 2 huge cages, and us, and we got into that car again. Closer to the airport, a car started following us, and Mom was very happy. It was almost midnight. People, after a hard work week, were driving to see us off, but where I didn't know. I was terribly scared. I panic at the sight of strangers. A group of people met us at the airport. I'd seen Anya and Olia before. They're great. I saw Asya and Nikolai for the first time. They all rushed to Mom, gave her flowers, gifts. Nikolai handed her real American dollars. Someone picked up the suitcases, someone took a cage. They asked Mom, "How were you going to do this alone?" And we all went deeper into the airport together. Mom bought a Sky priority ticket, so we were first. Nearby was a group of Uzbeks under escort, about 20 people. They were being deported. The escort wasn't much smaller than the number of deportees themselves. Mum was running somewhere, paying something. The girls were always nearby. Asya stroked me and said she understood now what dog magic was all about. Soon after, we were put into cages and weighed. My cage with me in it weighed over 100 pounds, 45 kilograms. Then airline employees came and said there were missing parts on the cages, but Mum convinced them everything was fine. Mum checked in the suitcases, and Anya, Asya and Olia pushed the cages we were in to passport control. All the girls hugged, some cried. They said they were proud of Mom and asked her to get them out of this country too. Touchdown brought tears and the sweetest reunion. We turned into the oversized baggage room. We were pulled out again. Mum struggled to remove the wheels from the cages. The employee said the cages didn't meet the standard. There were missing screws, and he couldn't risk his job. Mum started pleading to solve the problem, but the employee was adamant. Mum said we had to fly out. We couldn't stay in this country any longer. The employee took pity and said he would try to do something, but it was possible the cages wouldn't be taken on the plane, and that Mum shouldn't board the plane until he called. Mum frantically ran around the airport. She didn't want to eat or drink. She was very worried about us. Boarding had already begun, and the airport employee still hadn't called. Suddenly, the phone rang. Everything was fine. The employee found a solution. Mom got on the plane and asked the flight attendant, "Were the dogs loaded? Is there heating in the cargo compartment?" The flight attendant said there was no information, and then the plane was loaded, and the flight attendant announced that the dogs were loaded. Mum cried heavily. The roar of the engine, the plane accelerating, it was a terrible noise. Saying I was scared is an understatement. The flight lasted 5 hours. Everything rattled and shook. The cage, tied with ropes, swayed constantly. Saga cried. Reunited at last, fear gave way to joy. Landing, noise, shaking. Mum asked the flight attendant, "Are the dogs alive?" The flight attendant replied with disgust that she had no idea. It was very rude. I saw light and heard strange speech. We were pulled out in our cages onto a cart and driven for about 2 more miles, 3 kilometers. It shook terribly. Mum ran around the oversized baggage counter, constantly asking, "Where are the dogs? Where are the dogs?" About 40 minutes passed. People came out and asked Mum questions. Mum thought something had happened to us. Her heart was breaking. Suddenly, Mum heard a howl that was neither dog nor human. It was Saga screaming in terror. I, out of fear, pressed myself into the cage. We were carried out directly in our cages by employees. They weren't careful, and inside was very uncomfortable. Mum poked her fingers through the bars to comfort us, but it didn't help Saga. Porters came over. A car waited at a separate airport exit. We drove for another half hour. The driver asked, "Are you here for a dog show?" When he got no, he asked, "Why are you doing this?" My parents would hear that dozens of times later. Now I live where dogs are friends, not nuisances. We arrived in a country where the attitude toward dogs was different from what I was used to in Russia. Here, some people don't see us as friends, but as beings they can harm. It was a shock. But I remembered those Central Asian drivers in Saint Petersburg and the horror I felt then. Now I understood my mission. I would help my humans rescue dogs from cruel and unjust fates. We arrived at the apartment, and there I saw Dad. I hadn't seen him in 3 years. I howled and jumped with joy. We're together. The most important thing is that we're together. We'll get through everything. I'm incredibly grateful to our landlord's family for letting us all live together. They are incredibly educated and intelligent people who treat animals with compassion. I express immense gratitude to Anya, Asya, Olya, and Nikolai for their help at the airport and their vital moral support. We will always remember, cherish, and hope to meet again.